Hello, I'm Khaja Asifullah from Government Degree College, Falakuma, Hyderabad. I'm lecturer in chemistry. Today, we will discuss about the atomic structure. This is the third lesson in the series, or it is part 3, in which we will discuss certain topics like Compton effect, Heisenberg principle, de Broglie's equation, and then we will switch over to quantum mechanical approach or Schrodinger wave equation. First, we will take Compton effect. What is it? Compton scattering or Compton effect was discovered by Compton. It is the scattering of photon by a charged particle, usually an electron. It results in decrease in energy of the photon, called as Compton effect. And the part of energy of the photon is transferred to the recoiling electron. And according to Compton, this shift in wavelength, that is d lambda, is given by 2 lambda by mc sine square theta by u. Let us see this figure. This is an electron. Maybe it is of carbon black or like that, any material like that. And this photon, which is called as incident photon, will hit it. Therefore, it may also be called as target electron. In the beginning, this target electron is at rest, and when the incident photon hits it, the photon will be traveling in this direction. It is scattered. This recoil electron and the photon is scattered, means it has deviated from its path. This was the path, this was the expected path. This line shows the expected path of the photon. When this photon strikes the electron will gain some energy and it will be emitted from the solid, and the photon which was incident is deviating from its path. Therefore, it is called scattered photon. Now let us talk about the quantity of energy in this incident photon and the quantity of energy in scattered photon. As we know, some amount of energy is utilized to remove this electron. Therefore, this will be having less energy than this photon. Now, you know that the amount of energy depends on frequency. Therefore, nu will be greater than nu dash. Nu dash is the energy of scattered photon, and nu is the energy of frequency of incident photon. Hence, we can say the energy of this incident photon is greater than the energy of scattered photon, or h nu is greater than h nu dash, or nu is greater than nu dash. Then what happened to the difference in energy? The difference in energy is utilized by this electron, whose momentum is mv or mu or mc, where M is the mass of electron, and V, U or C, whichever letter we use to denote it, is velocity of electron. So mass into velocity will give you momentum, and you know that this will also be equal to this much. Therefore, this is called Compton effect. Now, there makes angle by electron as well as by scattered photon from the normal or this line. The angle made by electron is here theta, and angle made by scattered photon here we have taken as phi. Okay, this theta is given in this equation. This delta lambda or d lambda, here d lambda refers to shift of shift in the lambda or wavelength of this photon. You see, when frequency is decreased, lambda, that is wavelength, is increased. Nu and lambda are in inverse proportionality. So here in this photon, more number of waves will be there. Here less, because its frequency is less. So there is shift in lambda. Lambda is less here than lambda dash. Therefore, here momentum is given by h nu by c, and here p dash, that is momentum of a scattered photon, is given by h nu dash by c. So this d lambda or shift in wavelength is given by 2 lambda by mc sine 2 theta, sine square theta by 2. Here lambda is wavelength, m is mass of the electron, c is velocity, sine theta is nothing but the angle. Sine theta, we will use angle theta here, and this is divided by 2. Next topic here we are taking as wave mechanical concept of the atom. D. Broglie is scientist. In 1924 suggested that radiations has dual nature, wave nature and particle nature. Okay, he derived a relationship between these two, which is called as de Broglie's relationship or de Broglie's equation. Okay, now to understand this, let us recall that the energy is having dual nature. A nature of energy or light, because light is also energy, is explained by two different theories basically: Newton's theory and Huygens theory. Newton's theory says that light consists of small particles called as corpuscle. Therefore, this theory is called as corpuscular theory. Whereas Huygens theory says that light consists of waves, therefore it is called wave theory. So basically, we have two different theories to explain nature of light. Okay, both are required. We cannot discard any of these two theories. Here, when we take the particle like electron, sometimes we call electron as a particle, sometimes we call electron as wave, that too standing wave or stationary wave around the nucleus in an orbit. So he says that we can use both the nature to explain or to understand Therefore, it is called dual nature. So light or energy has both natures, wave nature and particle nature. Now, he combined these two equations. Using these two equations, one says that E is equal to mc square. This is the equation given by Einstein, which is called as mass energy equivalence relationship or mass energy equivalence equation. Here, E is called energy, m is mass, and c is velocity of light. The other equation is from Planck theory or Planck equation, according to which the energy emitted or absorbed is taken as quanta or photon. Or according to Planck's theory, a body can emit or absorb energy in quanta or photon, and the quantum of energy in this photon or quanta is given by h nu, where h is called Planck's constant, whose value is 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34 joules second, and nu is the frequency of radiations emitted or absorbed. Now we see that both the equations are having energy on the left side, means they are same. Our energy is represented by are given by two different equations, mc square and h nu. He took the advantage of this and he got another relationship. E is equal to mc square, which is equal to h nu. Why? Because left hand side, when we have two equations, if left hand sides are equal, then right hand sides of both equations will be equal. So mc square is equal to h nu. But you should remember that nu is equal to c by lambda. Where from this come? You should recall that velocity of energy or velocity of light is equal to frequency into wavelength. With the help of that equation, we can convert this into in terms of frequency. So frequency is equal to velocity by wavelength. Now we can send this mass to the right side. Therefore, this we will remain with c square is equal to h nu by m, and then substitute frequency is equal to velocity by wavelength. Therefore, we get mc square is equal to h. Instead of this, we will be having c by lambda. So c gets cancelled on both sides, and we will remain with mc on the left side and h by lambda on the right side. This m into c, just now I told you that mass into velocity is nothing but momentum. Therefore, momentum p, we can substitute this p with mc and we get the equation p is equal to h by lambda. Or send this lambda to left side, we will get lambda is equal to h by p. This is called de Broglie's equation. H lambda is equal to h by p, or wavelength is equal to Planck's constant divided by momentum, or we can also write it as lambda is equal to h by mc. In either way you can write, where lambda is wavelength, h Planck's constant, p momentum, which is nothing but the product of mass and velocity. So this is the final relationship between wavelength and momentum. Lambda proportional to 1 by p. Why? Because h is constant. Therefore, we can convert it into proportionality. lambda is equal to h by p to lambda proportional to 1 by t. Means the wavelength and the momentum are inversely proportional to each other. Wavelength proportional to 1 by momentum, or we can say wavelength is inversely proportional to momentum. Lambda is wavelength, nu is frequency, c is velocity, m is mass, p is momentum, h is called Planck's constant, and its value is 6.26 into 10 to the power minus 34 joules second. This gives you the idea that the electron or body like electron has both the natures, wave nature as well as particle nature. Universally, we can say that every body will have both nature, wave nature as well as particle nature. But for particle like electron, which is very small, whose velocity is very high, or it is high, it moves or travels with very high speed, the wave nature is important for this. Whereas for bodies which are big in size, the wave nature has less important. For example, if we consider a small body like electron and a big body like a cricket ball, then you can say the wavelength of the wave of electron is more significant than the wavelength of the photon emitted or absorbed by a body like cricket ball. So we can neglect that wave nature for big bodies like for cricket ball or any other big body. But we cannot neglect the wave nature of electron. Therefore, it is very important for small particles like electron. Therefore, we can say that electrons sometimes behave like a particle and sometimes behave like a wave. And here the wave is a standing wave. Look here. What is the difference between a continuously traveling wave, a transverse wave, and the standing wave? If a wave is traveling, that wave can be denoted like this. It is traveling continuously, but it is confined between two obstacles or 2 points. This type of wave is called standing wave or stationary wave. Actually, these are three waves. Starting from this point up to this point, one wave. This point to this point, second wave. This is third wave. Now, this is actually original wave which is traveling from this point, and when it meets this, it cannot travel further, therefore it reflects back and it travels again in exactly opposite direction to the original wave, and it meets here with the original wave. Therefore, we can also define a stationary or a standing wave, that these are two waves with same velocity and frequency and amplitude. All wavelength, frequency and amplitude of these two different waves are same, but they are traveling in exactly opposite direction. Therefore, they make a wave like this, where these points where the amplitude is zero. Actually, what is amplitude? The distance of a particle of medium from mean point. This is called mean point. This line is represented with the mean position of the particle of medium. And when it got disturbed, its maximum displacement is here. This is called amplitude. So these two waves are having same wavelength or frequency and amplitude. They are traveling in exactly opposite direction will produce a stationary or standing wave. Now this situation you have to imagine for an electron moving in an orbit. This is the orbit of an atom. This is the nucleus of atom, and this is one of the orbit of the atom in which electrons can revolve around this nucleus. Now this electron, which is actually, we are now supposing it as a standing wave, then this should be like this. Starting from this one wave, then second wave, then third wave. This standing wave is represented here. That means I told you these are three waves. Number one, number two, number three. Actually, it is one wave, but we have the distance from this point to this point as lambda. So it is called one wave. Again, the distance between these 2 points, again a lambda, again a lambda. Therefore, three wavelengths. And this, again here, three. Therefore, these three are confined to this orbit. And here there are two different situations. These are two, if there, these two different situations are compared here. Why? Because these waves can either be in this form or in this form. Which one is allowed for an electron and which one is forbidden, or whether this position is possible or not, this possible or not. Out of these two, this position which is on the left side is possible and this is not possible. Therefore, this is called allowed orbit and this is called forbidden. Okay. This wave is representing electron. Either this, you consider this one or this one. Case 1, case 2. Both are representing the standing wave of electron. But it is said as allowed orbit. This is said as forbidden. Why? Because when this type of waves superimpose, they should meet each other at one point. Here this is meeting, but here it is not meeting. You can see that they are not meeting. This is called constructive interference. This is called destructive interference. So where a constructive interference takes place, this is called allowed. And if it is not a constructive, that means it is a destructive, it is forbidden. How? We had to consider this orbit as a circle, because Bohr's orbit are circular orbits. He assumed orbits to be circular in shape. Now, for a circle, the circumference of the circle will be given by 2 pi r. Circumference of a circle is equal to 2 pi r. And here, in this circle, there should be few waves. As I told you here, three waves are there. Again, three waves here also in this circle. Starting from, let us count from this point. This is 1, 2, 3. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. is taken as a number n. N is equal to 1, 2, 3, etc. Or n can have values 1, 2, 3, etc. Okay, then only n lambda will be equal to 2 pi r. So this is called a condition for constructive interference. What is that condition? Circumference of circle should be equal to n lambda. Means the circumference of circle should possess either one wavelength or two wavelengths or 3, 4, etc. or lambda. Lambda is again nothing but wavelength. So here 3 wavelengths are there, therefore 2 pi r is equal to 3 lambda. N is an integer, therefore this is allowed. Now this is forbidden. Why? Because this not equal to a number, a whole number n, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. It may be a fraction, like 2.5, 3.5, whatever it may be. This is not a whole number. Therefore, the rule doesn't fit here. It is not in accordance with this rule, which says that in circumference of circle there should be n number of lambda or n wavelengths. So in this case 2 pi r is not equal to n lambda. Here it is given as dash. R dash means the distance between the nucleus to orbit, that is radius of atom. Here R is again distance between center of nucleus to the orbit. Again this is radius. Okay, this radius multiplied by 2 pi is the circumference of this circle, and r dash, it is nothing but the radius of this circle multiplied by 2 pi is given as circumference of circle. This circle, it is not equal to n lambda dash, means there are not n number of wavelengths. The number may be a fraction. Therefore, this is not allowed or called as forbidden. So this is according to the Bohr's theory, in which Bohr says that the angular momentum of an electron should be integral multiple of h by 2 pi. Integral multiple. The integral multiple again will be n, 1, 2, 3, etc. The values of n. Therefore, MVR will be equal to 1h by 2 pi or 2h by 2 pi, like that. Or in general, MVR is equal to nh by 2 pi. Therefore, these two situations are nearly same. Bohr's postulate of quantization of angular momentum and de Broglie's. Now, the above figure illustrates that an electron is like a stationary or a standing wave, and it is in accordance with quantization of angular momentum. Just now I was trying to explain this only. In Bohr's theory, we have a postulate or less quantization of angular momentum, according to which MVR is equal to n h by 2 pi. This n is an integer, that is a number, 1, 2, 3, etc. 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. It's the whole number, and here h by 2 pi is constant. So it is a condition. Similarly, in de Broglie's equation, we have considered it as stationary wave or standing wave. That is also condition. Both are nearly same. Therefore, it is like a stationary or standing wave, and it is in accordance with that postulate which was explained or given by or assumed by Bohr. This can be derived as follows: 2 pi r is equal to n lambda. If we convert it in this form, it will become like this. Why? Because just before this we had this equation, h is equal to, lambda is equal to h by p. If we substitute that, we get 2 pi r is equal to nh by p, or 2 pi r is equal to nh by mv. This is nothing but angular momentum, and it will be equal to nh by 2 pi. Now, coming to the second point, called as Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Again, Heisenberg is a scientist. He says that for a fast moving particle like electron, it is not possible to calculate position and momentum or velocity simultaneously. If it is calculated simultaneously, there will be uncertainty in calculations. Okay, why and what this principle is trying to explain us? Consider this electron moving in the circular path. It is the original path of the electron, and this should be the expected one when we concentrate a photon on it. But it will take this path. Why? Because this photon will be absorbed by this. Okay, this is incident path, photon. It will strike this photon. Then this is new path of the electron, and this is reflected photon. Now, if we try to find the position as well as the momentum simultaneously, means at the same time the position of particle like electron and the momentum of electron, it is not possible for us. Why? Because electron is very fast moving body. Its speed, if we consider it as a wave, then it will be 3 into 10 to the power 8 meters per second. So body with that much velocity will not be at the same position. It will be here in fraction of second. It will take 2-3 rounds or more. Therefore, it is not possible for us to find the position as well as momentum of electrons simultaneously. Then what will happen if we calculate exact position of the electron? We will be unable to find the momentum or calculate the momentum. Or if we calculate this, this will not be calculated exactly. So there will be some uncertainty in calculations. Okay, let us consider that delta x is the uncertainty in calculating the position. Okay, x is the position and position will change, therefore delta x. Here momentum p, and we cannot calculate exact, therefore there will be certain uncertainty here, delta. So delta x and delta p are the uncertainty in calculating the position and the momentum. Then their product, or the product of uncertainties of position and momentum, will be greater than or equal to h by 4 pi, or it is sometimes given as h bar by 2, where h bar will be equal to h by 2 pi. So it will be h by 4 pi. So you have to remember that the uncertainty in position into uncertainty in momentum is greater than or equal to h by 4 pi. So according to Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, we get equation as the delta x into delta p is greater than or equal to h by 4 pi. So the product of uncertainties of position or finding position and momentum is equal to h by 4 pi or greater than. Now next point is Schrodinger wave equation. All these are occurring nearly at the same time. In 1923, Compton gave Compton effect. In 1925, uncertainty principle, de Broglie's uncertainty principle. Now, Schrodinger. Again, he is considering electron as standing or stationary wave. That you should remember again, that Schrödinger also consider electron as standing wave or stationary wave. For what purpose? To calculate the probability of finding an electron at various points around the nucleus in an atom. Why all these things are happening? Actually, we are trying to discuss how and where the electron can be found in an atom around the nucleus. First, according to Bohr, the electrons revolve around the nucleus, and according to Rutherford, there is a nucleus or central part in the atom where protons and neutrons are there. Around that, electrons are revolving around the nucleus. Then, in what orbit they move or travel? Okay, those orbits are called Bohr's orbit, which are circular in nature, shape, and their energies are quantized. They will have certain amount of energy. Every orbit will have certain amount of energy, which depends on the size of the orbit. First orbit will have least energy, second higher than that, next higher than that, and the last or outermost orbit will have highest energy. Their energies are quantized, their angular momentum is quantized. Now, the problem is to find the electron. Where to find? Why? Because it is fast moving body. Then we can say there is probability. Not exactly the position is known to us. Position of electron is not known to us. Only we can talk about the probability. So Schrödinger is trying to give us an equation, and if we solve that equation, we get the probability to find an electron around the nucleus in an atom. Now, according to classical wave equation, it describes wave motion of a particle along x-axis. Okay, why? Because atom again is a three-dimensional. Why? Because according to atomic models or theories given by Thomson, Rutherford, Bohr, etc., Sommerfeld, etc., atom we have considered or assumed that it has a spherical shape. When atom is a sphere, like a sphere, it is a three-dimensional figure. Now, three dimension means x dimension, y, z dimension, are three directions or three axes. Here we are taking first x axis. Therefore, the wave motion of a particle along x axis can be applied to classical wave equation. Describes that psi is equal to a sine square pi x by lambda. Sine is equal to a sine 2 pi x by lambda. This psi, lambda, nu, its delta, etc. are the Greek letters. This is called psi, 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 and this is lambda, and this is sine, means trigonometric ratio. So psi is equal to a sine 2 pi x by lambda. What is psi then? It is a wave function, and it represents the amplitude of wave. Just now I told you what is amplitude. Amplitude is nothing but the maximum displacement of a particle of medium from its mean position. So A is equal to maximum value of psi. It will be a constant for a particular wave. It will not change. Amplitude for a particular wave will not be changed. Here electron is considered as stationary wave or standing wave. In the beginning only we assumed that. Now x is displacement in the given direction, because the wave is moving in x direction. Lambda is wavelength, and there involves very tough mathematics called as differentiation, that too partial differentiation, etc., where again a symbol dou is used or d is used. So we will differentiate the above equation. What is that above equation? This psi is equal to a sine 2 pi x by lambda. A is amplitude here. Now psi is a wave function. Actually psi has no significance, but psi square will have its own significance, and it is a function. And you know, when we solve the function for particular values, we will get the value of function. Those are called eigenfunction and eigenvalues. Now we have to integrate the equation, above equation, and again integrate, means double differentiate. After double differentiating the above equation, and here we have lambda, and for lambda we will substitute h by mu. Again this is momentum. H by p is written here in the form of h by mu. What is this? Momentum. Lambda is wavelength, h is Planck's constant, m is mass of electron, u is velocity of electron, because we are talking about the electron. So here u is taken to represent velocity of electron. So when we substitute h by mu in place of lambda, finally we arrive at this equation. So you should remember that we are differentiating this equation twice, that is called double differentiation. And on substituting lambda is equal to h by mu, we get this equation. How to read it? D square psi by dx square. Actually d by dx is used for differentiation, because it is double differentiation, therefore d square by dx square psi. I'm reading again, d square psi by dx square plus 8 pi square m by h square. Kinetic energy psi is equal to 0. Here we will consider kinetic energy of electron. Here m is mass of electron, h is Planck's constant, psi is wave function. The total will be equal to 0. Now every body has its own energy, or it will possess energy, that is called total energy, and it is sum of two types of energies, kinetic energy and potential energy. Here the electron is revolving around the nucleus, means it is traveling. Actually revolution is nothing but traveling. It is a type of motion. Electron is in circular motion, so it is revolving around the nucleus. Will have certain kinetic energy, and it will have certain potential energy also. Therefore it is sum of, that is total energy, sum of kinetic energy of electron plus potential energy of electron. Now here in this equation we have kinetic energy. Then how to write it in the form of potential energy? It is total energy minus potential energy. This total energy is equal to sum of these two, and kinetic energy is E minus PE, that is potential energy. Therefore we, on substituting this in the above equation here in place of kinetic energy, we get d square by dx square psi plus 8 pi square m by h square into E minus PE, means total energy minus potential energy into psi, which is equal to 0. So the above equation takes this form. The above equation, wave equation, is for one dimension. In the beginning, we suppose or assume only movement in x direction. Now, because it is a three-dimensional one, therefore we have to take all the dimensions, because we don't know electron is moving in which direction and which where it is. Therefore, when we consider all those directions, this will be the final equation: d square by dx square psi plus d square by dy square psi plus d square by dz square psi plus 8 pi square m by h square into E minus Pe psi is equal to 0. Again, I am reading. Please concentrate. D square by dx square psi plus d square by dy square psi plus d square by dz square psi plus 8 pi square m by h square into total energy minus potential energy into psi is equal to 0. This is called Schrodinger wave equation for three dimension. This was the Schrodinger wave equation in one direction. This is Schrodinger wave equation in three dimensions. Now it looks like lengthy. If you substitute some other thing, it will come to this short form. But before that, let us take what are the symbols, what all symbols represent. In the above equation, which is called as Schrodinger wave equation, x, y, and z are the coordinates called as Cartesian coordinates. You know, in geometry, we divide the plane in two axes, x and y, a plane. But when we, that is called two-dimensional geometry. When we consider the third dimension, we introduce another axis called as z here also. Until and unless we take x, y, and z in directions or dimensions or axis, we cannot represent any solid figure like sphere or cube or cuboid or any other. So these three are called Cartesian coordinates. And m is mass of electron, E is total energy of electron, Pe is potential energy of the electron. Again, psi is the amplitude of the electron wave called as wave function. Now substituting this symbol in for the sum of all these, because the electron is can move in any direction, therefore d square by dx square plus d square by dy square plus d square by dz square is taken as equal to this del. Therefore, the above equation called as Schrodinger wave equation, which looks lengthier here, will be converted into short form as del square psi plus 8 pi square m by h square into total energy minus potential energy into psi is equal to 0. This is the shortest form of Schrodinger wave equation. So if we solve this equation, we will get certain values for this wave function, and that will give you the probability of finding the electron. Okay, here one thing you have to remember is Schrodinger wave equation is based on de Broglie's idea. What is de Broglie's idea? That de Broglie says that bodies like electron will have two natures, wave nature and particle nature. And the solution of above equation will give you electron distribution in space, how it is distributed in the space. atom around the nucleus, and only the allowed energy levels will be taken for a particle which is moving in a magnetic field. Here electron is considered as a particle or standing wave in the influence of certain magnetic field. So when we solve this, we get the probability, and because time do not permit here to discuss all those things, those are very lengthy. In next class, we will consider all those things which we are unable to do today. So in next class, we will be dealing with probability curves or radial probability curves, which will give you the space around the nucleus where we can find the electron or probability of finding an electron. Generally, we call them as orbitals. So we will take those two things which are very important in next class. One is radial probability curves and the shapes of orbital. For today, it is the end of the topic. So please, thank you.